Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll start with this. Another look at a fighter that I'm fast becoming a fan of. Canada's own Tammara Thibeault. She made her professional debut yesterday on the undercard of an MVP show opposite the ring, her countrywoman, veteran Natasha Spence. No relation to Errol. Evaluating Tammara's finer qualities, she stands in at a very statuesque 6 feet tall in the women's middleweight division. Great physical dimensions. It was the first time I had ever seen Tammara fight, but that much I already knew, that she's very big for the weight. Long and limber. Didn't know what to expect, though. What kind of fighter is Tammara? Is she a safety-first fighter? A back foot lateral movement fighter? What kind of fighter is she? And I was pleasantly surprised to see how aggressive and persistent she is while still fundamentally sound. What immediately stood out was Tammara's ever-present jab, her lead hand, her jab hand, which is her right hand since Tammara is a southpaw. She leads with the right to set up the left. I love a spiteful southpaw. Standing in at 6 feet tall in the middleweight division, that's a tall drink of boxing and already makes for a tricky assignment. But tack on that she's a southpaw, that just makes her more difficult to deal with. Ever present with the lead hand was like a trip hammer. There's no way Natasha was going to come forward without running into that jab, so Natasha chose to give up ground, try to stay on the outside, but staying on the outside of a fighter who's taller than you are and longer than you are, you're a sitting duck out there. So what do you do when you can't really get close to your opponent because you keep running into jabs, but you can't really get on the outside of them either since they're tall enough and long enough to hit you there too? What do?
Get your ass kicked!
That's what. And that's what Natasha Spence did opposite the ring. Tammara Thibeault, who showed an ever-present jab, a strong backhand. I want to say that you can see Tammara's got heavy hands. You can see she's got power because she was backing up Natasha Spence almost immediately, stepping into the jab, bringing other punches over, and stringing combinations together.
She's got speed, she's got power.
No, she's got power because Natasha, as experienced as she is, she spent the whole fight retreating, trying to get away from Tammara, trying to stay on the outside of her to set up a big counter, a big overhand.
She tried for it for a couple of times, but missed by a mile. When Tammara Thibeault didn't get under the looping backhand,
weaving under the sweeping backhand, she'd step out. And long legs make for long strides. Tammara Thibeault has got them. When a fighter is as statuesque as a Tammara Thibeault with very long legs, that makes for long strides, meaning in one step, she can cover a lot of ground, whether that's coming forwards or moving backwards. In this instance, moving backwards, taking that half step back to get out of range of her opponent's punches. She may as well be a mile away because that's how much ground she can cover with a single step.
or a half step.
If she gets off a jab and you try to counter it with a backhand over the top, she can take a half step back and she may as well be a mile away. It's hard enough to get close to her.
Because of the jab.
When she's moving away from you, it's that much harder.
Balance.
One of the less obvious qualities that Tammara Thibeault has is balance. Very good balance. There were moments where Natasha would try to charge her.
Tammara's got very good feet.
Balance and coordination, that she would bull and matador the shorter, stockier Natasha Spence, just pivoting. Slight alteration to her position, staying in position to punch without holding her feet. She'd pivot. In some moments where Natasha Spence would try to charge her, she would pivot. Bull and matador Natasha Spence. She's still in position to punch, though not exactly where she was when Natasha would first charge her. That pivot, that bull and matador.
That takes balance, that takes coordination, and it's a good way to open the opponent up. Hit them with a counter, they won't see.
Feels to me like Tammara Thibeault was hoping to end this fight with a big highlight reel knockout because she was going for it. She was aggressive, laying into Natasha Spence, and this fight was scheduled for 4 3-minute rounds.
She beat her up real good, but she didn't get the knockout.
So many that are beating the drum for 3-minute rounds in a women's boxing match instead of 2-minute rounds, on the premise that if the women have more time to work, they'll rack up more knockouts.
I don't presume to be a mind reader, but I looked at Tammara after the fight was over, and she did seem a little disappointed that she didn't get the knockout.
She'll find that in the paid ranks as opposed to the amateurs, in the paid ranks, it works a lot better if you just let it happen.
Let what happen?
The knockout. It works a lot better when you don't chase it, just let it come.
Just let it happen.
Let your fundamentals do all the work, because that's what sets up the knockout anyway. All the mistakes your opponent is making that you're not making because of your fundamentals.
What about the added time?
I think it's become a bit overstated over time, the virtue of the 3-minute round versus the 2-minute round in a women's boxing match. I've seen plenty of broads get knocked out in 2-minute rounds.
It's not a requisite to get the knockout that you have the added time, the 3-minute rounds, and it's not a fail-safe either. It's not a guarantee that because you're fighting for 3 minutes instead of 2, it's gonna end in a knockout.
It's not just about the added time, you also have to set up the knockout. Now, there are some instances, brazen ones, where there's a dramatic difference in strength between one fighter and the other, like Sandy Ryan and Terry Harper.
Amanda Serrano and Stevie Morgan.
To where one fighter can basically just go in there and mow down the other, but that's not all the time, and most of the time you have to set it up. It's all about trying to hit the opponent with a punch they don't see.
And that boils down to fundamentals. Your fundamentals versus theirs.
Their mistakes and what openings that gives you. I think you'll be hard-pressed to find a fighter as skilled as Tammara at or around these weights. At middleweight, we know that Clarissa, the great Clarissa Shields, she still holds 2 alphabet titles here, but her next fight is all the way up there at heavyweight. I don't know if and when she's coming back to the middleweight division. If she doesn't, Tammara will have the run of the place. Clarissa Shields seems to have vacated 2 of the 4 alphabet titles she used to hold, and one of them was on the line all the way down there in Australia when Kay Scott took on Desley Robinson.
But a vacant IBF title, Desley won it.
Desley is IBF champion, but I'll say it here and now. I would pick Tammara Thibeault to beat the both of those girls today.
What?
She's that good. I'm that taken aback by her. I am that impressed.
She's good.
I want to see her hit the ground running in the coming year. I want to see Tammara fight 4 times next year, if they can get her out there 4 times, because she is the full package. She seems to already have it all.
Congratulations to young Tammara in what was her professional debut. I'm impressed.
Elsewhere in the world of boxing, the hits just keep on coming as Jai Opetaia's opponent, Hussein Cinkara, withdraws from the January bout, leaving Jai Opetaia, at least momentarily, without a dance partner. The unfortunate fight withdrawals keep on coming as an injury to Hussein Cinkara has seen his challenge to IBF and Ring Magazine Cruiserweight champion Jai Opetaia on January 8th, early next year, called off. As the news of Sam Goodman's cut forcing the Naoya Inoue at December 24th postponement filtered through, Cinkara's ankle injury was also revealed and the Gold Coast Convention Center clash canned, for Cinkara at least. According to Michael Francis, promoter at Tasman Fighters, doctors confirmed ligament damage, which would sideline the German fighter for approximately 3 months. The promotional grouping is seeking to proceed with the planned date and looking at drafting a replacement opponent for the show, streamed live on DAZN. It's unfortunate that Hussein won't be able to compete, but we're close to securing a replacement. We are currently negotiating with several top-ranked boxers from within the IBF rankings and expect to announce Jai's next opponent by Monday, added Mr. Francis. Fans can rest assured this will remain an exciting high-stakes fight. Eddie Hearn and Spencer Brown have been fantastic in working through this situation with the IBF and other potential opponents. Champion Opetaia, who is used to dismantling opponents in the ring rather before they even get there, was optimistic about the situation. This is part of boxing. I'm not worried. I'll be more than ready for whoever accepts the challenge. I'm here to prove I'm the best, no matter who's standing across from me. whoever ends up standing across from Jai will be a late replacement, a short notice opponent, and not the kind of guy that he was preparing for. In those situations, it's not uncommon for the fighter, the champion, to be thrown off by that.
Remember, Sebastian Fundora was a late replacement for Tim Zhu. He was replacing Keith Thurman, guy who was the exact opposite of who Tim was getting ready for.
Via the IBF's ranked standings, the next highest ranked available contender is Michał Cieslak of Poland. And I've seen this guy in action. Some similarities to Hussein Cinkara in the sense that this is a guy who likes to move, guy who likes to box.
He's bald.
Just like Hussein. You may remember Michał Cieslak from the Lorenzo Colli fight back when Lorenzo Colli was still WBO champion. This is an athletic guy, a mover, a boxer.
He's number 3.
Matthias Masternak is number 4. Masturbate. He was in action not that long ago with a then champion in Chris Smith. Tough guy, durable guy, been around the block, he's been around for years. Odd stoppage in the Chris Smith fight. Think it was a body shot? I think he threw the fight. Just one man's opinion. Maybe he'll be who Jai Opetaia ends up fighting next. There's another guy there in Ives Ngabu.
Who's that guy?
I don't know. A former world title challenger in the United Kingdom zone, Richard Riakporhe. Haven't seen or heard much from Richard since he dropped a lopsided decision to Chris Smith in what was their rematch.
I heard he's having sex with a 66-year-old Madonna.
And that's disgusting. Richard Riakporhe was supposed to face Jai Opetaia some months ago as his mandatory challenger, but he withdrew from that situation. Rather, he was withdrawn by Ben Shalom.
That's what set up the rematch with Chris Smith, and that's where Richard lost.
I don't get the sense that Richard will be the guy who stands in as a late replacement. I feel it will be either Poland's own Michał Cieslak or Matthias Masternak.
Masturbate.
I feel like it'll be one of those guys because those guys are workhorse fighters.
Old war horses, the both of them. The chance to fight for a world title, even on short notice.
I think they'll take it. As far as Jai, it's just important that he get through this one. It's just important that he get through this, get this obligation out the way so he's free to unify, so he's free to pursue either Badu Jack, reinstalled, WBC champion, or Zurdo Ramirez.
Unified WBO and WBA champion. It's just important you get this out of the way, get through it, and then go after them.
They're working around the clock to finalize a fight for Jai in a timely fashion. Let's get it done.
Come on, Jai.
In men's heavyweight news, Joseph Parker picks Tyson Fury to win the Alexander Usyk rematch, surprised at Daniel Dubois' rise to champion. And we're not going to spend any time on the Fury versus Usyk fight and what Joseph has to say about it, because, well, Joseph is Tyson Fury's friend. So what do you think he's saying?
Fury's gonna win.
Let's talk about the Daniel Dubois fight. When I leave New Zealand on Friday, I will be gone for 11 weeks, Parker said. I won't see my family for Christmas and New Year's, but I'm really excited for the opportunity that I have to fight Daniel Dubois for the IBF Championship of the World, and to do my best to become a 2-time world champion. That will be so beautiful. It is difficult. The most difficult part of boxing for me personally is leaving the family. And the kids have grown up now. They understand that I have to be away for work. There are times when they can come with me and join camp and stay in another house, and I can see them every day. But this time, I really want to focus. It is hard, but we all have to make sacrifices in order to achieve greatness.
Who would have thought that Joseph would be fighting for an alphabet title again after being stopped by Joe Joyce?
Right?
Many thought that was the end of that guy.
Here he is. A series of fights that led him to beat Deontay Wilder in lopsided fashion and Zhilei Zhang by the skin of his teeth. Parker recovered from 2 knockdowns to upset China's Zhilei Zhang in March to win the WBO interim strap. Zhang and Parker were contracted for a rematch, so the New Zealander had been preparing for a second meeting with Zhang until he got the call to face Dubois. I thought it was a rematch with Zhang next. So everything that we were doing was leading to the rematch with Zhang, Parker said. The only difference with Zhang and myself was the weight. My endurance was better. I think the speed was better. Zhang is a very good fighter and has great boxing IQ, but the biggest difference was the weight. So I was putting on the size in order to close that gap, the weight difference between Zhang and myself. Zhang weighed 290 pounds, close to 300 pounds for his fight with Parker, 41.5 pounds heavier than Dubois weighed against Joshua. The Chinese southpaw is extremely heavy-handed, while Dubois, an orthodox unorthodox pugilist, is better known for his phenomenal jab and the speed with which he can deliver power shots.
With Dubois, it's a totally different fight. So we are going to trim down big time, Parker said. With Dubois, I have to be quick. Deontay Wilder and Zhang are both power punchers, the same as Dubois, but Dubois, his endurance is it's on another level to those two fighters. I have to match him for the endurance that he's gonna bring, but also he throws a lot of punches, power punches and combinations, whereas the other guys, they don't really throw too much, so I have to really lift my game for Dubois. Parker, like many, has been surprised by Dubois' rise and progression as one of the world's elite heavyweights. Against Jarrell Miller, I thought Miller. Then came Hrgovic, and I thought Hrgovic.
He picked AJ to win, too.
So I've been wrong 3 times. He's grown in confidence each and every time he gets in the ring, Parker said. You can argue that Joseph is facing the most dangerous version of this fighter the sport has ever seen.
The most confident.
I was surprised the way that he finished Joshua. I thought he would have done something different, but Dubois, all credit to him. He brought the best performance on the night. Many questioned whether Parker would ever get back to an elite level after his devastating loss to Joe Joyce. What has he done since? 5 fights, unbeaten, and wins over Wilder and Zhang is simply astonishing. The difference with the Joseph Parker of then and now is that I'm a lot more mature, he said, and also, I appreciate the position that I'm in. I appreciate and I'm grateful for the opportunities that I get. The younger me, I did train hard and do things right, but not everything right. Whereas now, I feel like I live the life, and there's purpose behind everything I do. There's a lot more motivation, I'm a lot more disciplined, and I'm fighting more so for myself. Personally, before it was for my dad, my coach, and different people in the team, but now it's more so for myself, my wife, and my kids, and my pornography addiction.
He didn't say that.
I feel like I'm a better boxer, I'm a better father, and I'm a better husband. I feel like that altogether. I'm content, I'm happy, and everything. Now that comes as a bonus, and I'm ready to take on the world. Joseph Parker can approach this Daniel Dubois fight with the best of intentions, but personally, I don't like his chances. I'm not picking him to win this one. There was an angle to the victory before with Deontay Wilder, his limitations as a boxer, and the fact that he's really only looking to land 1 punch. With Chang,
With Wilder, he was facing a limited fighter with poor coordination, poor cardio, 2 left feet.
with Chang, you're facing a more coordinated fighter and a more well-schooled fighter.
He leads with the opposite hand, where Wilder was an orthodox fighter, Chang was a southpaw, but Chang's got his drawbacks too. He doesn't have much of a work rate, even though he has a big punch.
Doesn't have a big work rate, doesn't have the best cardio. That was another common denominator between those last 2 guys. Neither Wilder or Zhang have very good cardio, where Daniel Dubois, he does. He's a younger man than the both of them, that too.
And he's more mobile than they are.
Daniel's not without his limitations. He's got drawbacks too, but they're not drawbacks, I think, that Joseph Parker can exploit.
Daniel doesn't have the best defense, but Joseph's not the biggest puncher.
Consider how many big right hands Philippe Hrgovic was able to connect on Daniel Dubois, and he wasn't able to keep him off. He wasn't able to discourage him. I don't think Joseph Parker will be able to discourage him. I think Joseph Parker is going to get overwhelmed and run over. I think he's going to get stopped.
That's what I think.